I can confidently say that I've known Henry Barringer longer than anyone in this room, except for Emily, and even she had only a small head start. Admittedly, I don't recall the day we first met. I believe it was a few days after my birth. But my uncle and I were close in age and lived next door to each other in Connecticut. He was Henry B, and I was Henry O. When I was 4 and he was 8, I idolized him. I was jealous that somebody could be that mature and talented. 60 years later, we both gave up on the whole maturity thing, but I'm not sure much else has changed. But I'd like to share 4 lessons that knowing Henry has taught me along the way. Number 1, nothing is guaranteed. What's really frustrating is that by any reasonable metric, we should have had Henry around for another 20, 25 years. He was in good shape from long lived stock. My grandparents and great grandparents smoked like furnaces and still lived into their 90s. But nothing is guaranteed. Your mileage may vary. No one is ringing your cell phone day and night to offer you an extended warranty. Henry was actually born in my grandparents' living room, not because they were crunchy granola types who didn't believe in hospitals, because it suddenly became clear that he had no intention of waiting for them to drive to the hospital 6 miles away. In the end, Henry came into the world early and left it far too early. In between, he spent time with the people he loved, doing the things he loved, in the places he loved, from traveling the world with Wendy to farming in the Cove to visiting the island in Small Point, Maine. He put the time he had to exceptionally good use. Nevertheless, if you're like Tim McGraw and you're thinking what you're going to do with your next 30 years, you may want to get started now because there are no guarantees that you will get all 30. Number 2, life is far too serious to be taken too seriously. If there was one thing that defined Henry, it was his sense of humor. He was one of the most naturally funny people I've ever met. When Henry and my brother Bill, another naturally funny person, started swapping stories, pretty soon everyone in the room was laughing so hard that they were crossing their legs and wishing they hadn't drunk that last glass of water. Seeing the two of them go back and forth and watching the mirth build and build was probably the first time I really understood how a nuclear reaction works. Now, most of us will never be as funny as Henry. Nevertheless, each of us can aspire to his sense of humor. Nothing is better than a sense of humor to help you step out of the weeds and smell the roses. Particularly in the current political environment, a well developed sense of humor allows us to remember that it is seldom really us versus them, and far more often us versus us. That truth be told, we're all just a bunch of knuckleheads, each of us stumbling through life, each of us doing the best we can. So, eating right? That's great. You're working out? That's good too. But we should all set aside some time each day to exercise our sense of humor. It will likely help us live longer and live better than those extra push ups ever could. Which brings us to number 3. There is no end to what you can achieve if you keep at it. Now, Henry was many things, but a good student was not one of them. When we were young, folks were not as knowledgeable about learning disabilities. Henry was probably dyslexic 6 ways to Sunday. So, suffice to say, his success was hard fought. When Henry graduated from the University of Tennessee, there were sighs of relief heard up and down the eastern seaboard. When the University of Toledo took a chance and let him into law school, there were more than a few gasps of disbelief as well. I think the acceptance letter was actually celebrated by jumping into a cattle trough. There might have been a bet involved. But Henry made it through and became a practicing lawyer and an excellent judge. It's true that happiness on earth ain't just for high achievers, but Henry really was a high achiever. He was someone who met his obstacles with resolve, someone who not only prevailed, but came out stronger from the task. He had a distinguished career, and his service was distinguished by intellect, character, and caring. Of course, Henry's achievements were not just professional, as is obvious when you see his son Benjamin, his stepsons Taylor, Bruce, and Ian, and the marriage that he and Wendy built together. And lastly, celebrate early and often. We were fortunate to have had a family get together on Labor Day where we got to see Henry and Wendy and Emily and Keith and Ashley and John and Johnny and Katie Rose and Ann and Tommy. The afternoon was more than just eating delicious food and swapping stories. It was about renewing the ties that bind. Wendy commented later that our family doesn't do this enough. She was absolutely right, and we plan to turn over a new leaf going forward. We should all make a point of celebrating the little things, and celebrating the big things, and celebrating everything in between. Not only because they're generally worth celebrating, but also because they are a great excuse to get family and friends together. As we said before, nothing is guaranteed. We should savor everything we have, and we should savor it while we still have it. Thank goodness we got together that afternoon. 8 days later, Henry was gone. So those are my four takeaways. But looping back to the importance of a sense of humor, I will leave you with one final thought. In many ways, the joke is ultimately on us. Right now, Henry is sitting on his old John Deere tractor, mowing pastures in heaven. Apparently, in heaven, old tractors don't break down. This evening, he'll be telling stories to the angels, and St. Peter will be struggling to keep a straight face. Henry will be having the time of his life, while we'll be stuck down here missing him. Thank you very much.